Hey guys, what's up? So here's a quick recap of the official server update that happened today. First on our list is Nana, where they changed her second skill. It can now morph multiple enemies just like this. The downside is that Molina can only last for 3 seconds. On the previous version, I think Molina can last for 12 seconds on the ground. They also optimized her ultimate by making it faster and smoother. So what can Nana users say about this? Is it a nerf? Next is the buff on Balmond. Second skill will no longer be cancelled when Balmond is knocked airborne. And it now gives movement speed when casting the skill. Ultimate now has an improved skill indicator, allowing you to hit enemies that are behind. And just like his second skill, the damage of his ultimate can't be interrupted with crowd control effects. These are solid buffs for Balmond because CC effects can no longer stop his damage. Next is the big adjustment on Vale. They removed his ability to select a specific skill when leveling up. That means he will only have one type of skill. First skill is almost the same as before. Second skill will now leave a windstorm at the edge. Enemies that are hit will be knocked airborne. His ultimate will pull enemies in the center and explode after a short moment. If you combine it with his second skill, the windstorm will also be pulled to the center. Next is the buff on Vexana. Her first skill will now be wider and faster. Enemies that are hit will be slightly pushed away from her direction. Her second skill now has a shorter delay, allowing you to land the skill better. And they also shorten its cooldown by a couple of seconds, which means it becomes a bit spammable with enough cooldown reduction. So far I like this one because of the faster activation on both skills. It's easier to hit enemies now. Next is the buff on Selena. They improved her lane clearing by allowing you to place marks on minions. And the explosion radius of her first skill is now bigger. Her ultimate can now be affected by cooldown reduction stats. This means it's easier to spam her skills. And they've added a new feature on her first skill in abyssal form. If it hits a marked target, the second skill will reset its cooldown. And her second skill will no longer consume mana. Things are looking good for Selena in this update. Next is the big change on Lunox. Switching to light and dark mode will only require one skill cast. As you can see, I can switch between modes with just one skill. A new effect is added where cooldown reduction can now affect her skills. The old passive conversion is also changed to spell vamp and magic penetration. What it means is that she converts all her spell vamp to penetration when in dark mode. And when in light mode, all magic penetration becomes spell vamp. And casting skill 2 during her ultimate will no longer consume mana. I'm not sure if she's stronger, but she looks easier to use, right? Next is the buff on Barats. His running ultimate is now here. His maximum stacks is now 10 instead of 25. And you can maintain it by doing enhanced basic attacks just like this. The defense per stack is increased so that it's almost similar to his old version. The slow on his first skill is removed and they placed it on his second skill. His second skill will now follow his direction, enabling him to pull the enemy to his side. Next is Alice, and they removed her blood orb mechanics. As you can see, the minion did not drop any orb. Her new passive will now give mana regen, and she gets movement speed and healing received each time she levels up. Her ultimate HP-based damage is removed, and they placed it on her second skill. There's also a new feature on her ultimate that reduces the cooldown of her skill 1 and 2 if the ultimate hits an enemy hero. That means her main damage source will be coming from her second skill. Honestly, this looks like a nerf, but maybe I'm wrong. What can you say Alice means? Next is the adjustment on Lancelot. The developer said they want him to become a damage dealer instead of a tank. To do this, they had to lower his base damage and increase the attack scaling of his second and ultimate skill. This will lower the damage output of a tank build Lancelot. Next is the buff on Kimmy. They lowered the energy cost of her first skill from 5 down to 4. In exchange, the ultimate will no longer give energy regen upon hitting a target. Next is Moskov. They increased the cooldown reduction for every basic attack from 0.5 to 0.8 seconds. But they had to make him slightly slower with his basic attack animation. Can you feel his slower basic attacks? Next is the nerf on Bruno. They lower the base damage of his balls by 20 to 45 points. It means it will affect his early and mid-game potential. Next is the nerf on tank Guinevere. First skill will now have a lower base damage but higher attack scaling. And her second skill gets a longer cooldown in the early game. I think tank Guinevere will still be strong though. Next is the buff on Dyrroth. His ultimate can no longer be cancelled by crowd control effects. He will be stunned but the damage will still connect once the skill has been casted. Next is the nerf on Terizla. His ultimate will have a weaker slow effect and a longer cooldown. That's an additional 10 to 6 seconds to his ultimate. Next is the nerf on Joy. She can cast her ultimate too easily so they'll have to increase its cooldown. That's an extra 8 seconds of cooldown at all levels. Next is the buff on Yin. The developer said he's weak without his ultimate so they're increasing its frequency. The ultimate cooldown is lowered by 8 to 6 seconds. Next is Masha. All the buffs will be removed upon entering her last HP bar. Meanwhile, her first skill will have lower damage on its base and attack scaling. Next are the battlefield adjustments. Crabs will now drop gold and experience points depending on what lane they're near, and you have to pick them up after killing the crab. The river will now give movement buff toward the location of the turtle 10 seconds before it appears. And if it dies, it will give another movement buff so that players can return to their lanes. Next are the item adjustments. War Axe will now give 12 physical attack and 2% spell vamp for each stack. Once it reaches 6 stacks, you'll get extra true damage equal to your 10% base damage. Brute Force Breastplate also has a similar effect. You'll now get stacks upon dealing damage to an enemy. Each stack gives 6 physical and magic power stats and 2% movement speed. When at full stacks, you'll get 15% control reduction and slow duration reduction. The effect is similar to tough boots. Last one is the missing Freya Legend skin. Based on the advanced server patch, it was supposed to be available today. Aww. And that's it for the recap of this official server update. Fighters are gonna have a good time with the new item changes on War Axe and Brute Force Breastplate. So are your heroes affected? Do you like the new crabs? Share your thoughts in the comment section. That's all for this video. Stay safe and thank you for watching.